a couple things going on in Georgia. First is that the judge in the Georgia case was really expected to make a decision likely on whether she would be disqualified by now.
Yeah, Fani Willis.
Yeah, this is about, remember, she has the boyfriend or ex-boyfriend who had the divorce, and then with the Wade divorce, you had the former Wade partner, Bradley, try to testify, except he said everything was privileged and because he handled Wade's divorce, and so he wouldn't testify about what he knew about when Fani Willis and that relationship began. It was the money that was paid to the new special counsel, the nearly $700,000 before, after, during, and all this cash talk. He is now going to have Bradley come back into his office next week. So this is going into next week, and try to clarify his testimony, which was so I don't think the judge has made a decision yet. I mean, it's clear.
Why is this relevant to the actual Trump case? They understand why it's relevant to the fact of, is she the right person to be doing this job? But why does this affect?
You shouldn't be enriching yourself so you can prosecute a political opponent.
But let's say they pull her. It's not like all of a sudden the Trump charges go away.
They could.
They could, because it's just become too corrupt.
A new DA could come in and say, you know what, this is a RICO case. I don't want to bring in a guy like Wade. They spent millions of dollars. They've got nowhere but a few little plea bargains of nothing. We don't have, the election's happening as we speak. We got Super Tuesday on this next week.
When you're talking about a disqualification of a prosecutor from pursuing their duties to criminally prosecute crimes in the Fulton County or anywhere, you would think that something like this would be decided rather quickly. You've put up your evidence, and within hours, the other side puts up their evidence as to why the DA should stay in the case, and the judge usually makes a ruling either from the bench or within a day or two. But this is just strung on, and it's because Trump is involved, and it changes the complexion of everything.
Do we think that, because of Trump being involved, you've got a judge who now next week is going to have an in-camera review with a witness who he said who's former attorney with the special counsel that Willis brought in, who she had the relationship with Wade, the $700,000 being an issue there. He was no longer they're no longer partners, but he did handle his divorce, and he kept invoking privilege. And the judge, McAfee, thought there that he didn't really understand privilege. So now, what when they say, just for our audience, so they understand this,
sure,
what is Bradley walking into when they say he's having an in-camera review with the judge?
Okay, what the judge is going to do is he claimed privilege. That is to say, he said, I can't answer those questions that you're posing to me because they were the answers were given to me, or the information was obtained by me during a time that Wade was my client, and therefore I say that the attorney-client privilege precludes me from going into those. The attorney-client privilege, very old privilege in Georgia and everywhere else. Whatever you say to an attorney in confidence in connection with your consultation can never be disclosed unless there is some outstanding reason to do so. In order, the court, for instance, would find that there was no privilege, possibly. But what the judge is doing is saying, okay, these privilege matters came out in open court. They're very complicated. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have an in-camera, that simply is a fancy Latin word for meaning in chambers in my office, conference with the lawyers to determine what was this privilege. Is it valid? Can it be used to preclude anyone from going in to what was told by Wade to the attorney or not? And the judge is going to have to make that tough decision as to whether the privilege applies. He may order him to answer. He may say, no, the privilege applies, and you don't have to answer the question.
At this point, I mean, so we have that next week, and then we are going to have closing arguments next week. So, and they're calling it that. So, I mean, literally, the parties who are the defendants in this case, in this criminal case, they will make a closing argument, and then the DA's office, who is representing Fani Willis, will make a closing argument. They had also made, Andy, the controversial decision not to bring her back for a second day of questioning.
Yeah, that was a tactical decision that I think was very smart. She was a train wreck on the first day, and I think she'd have been worse subsequent to that because she came in combative, angry, arrogant, and everything else. And But what's going to happen now is the judge is going to entertain what they call closing arguments. In other words, each side, each of the defendants and the state is going to be given an opportunity to argue their case, to say where the law comes down here, why she should be disqualified or why she shouldn't be disqualified. And by the way, if she is disqualified, that disqualifies all the Fulton DA's office, including all her assistants. A new prosecutor would be appointed by the governor, Jordan, who would come in and make a new evaluation of the case totally from the beginning. It's very difficult in Georgia to get a prosecutor disqualified. I got to tell you, there has got to be a systemic problem with the prosecutor pursuing the case for the judge to do it. And I think what the defendants are going to argue, Jordan, is that the misconduct that took place was so undermining of the integrity and impeccability that should obtain in the criminal justice system that she shouldn't be permitted, or her office, to prosecute the case. And it's a matter of public perception. That's what they're going to say. The public has to be convinced that the criminal process is pure and above reproach.
You know, it's to me, I think, again, it's going into its third week. We know there's going to be more argument that you will get to watch. I guess that will be televised too. And then, I mean, he should be making a decision after that. I mean, 3 weeks of this is a long time.
I mean, that's a long time to make a decision whether to disqualify a prosecutor from a case. I think what he's going to do is the longer he takes, the more I think that shows that he's going to disqualify her, because he's really going to have to justify it. I don't think this case is going to be tried this year, because if the Court of Appeals were to decide to take the case, then they would have another briefing schedule. Then they would have the possibility of an oral argument before a 3-judge panel of the Georgia Court of Appeals, and it would go on and on and on. And you know what, Jordan? In addition, the losing side could seek certiorari to the Georgia Supreme Court in this case, which would even make it longer. So the idea of the defense, and they're doing it brilliantly, is drag it out. Drag it out
I think
forever.
if she gets moved off, she might go that far. Because this is the case that takes her from DA to like the next Stacey Abrams. Right?
That's a good way to put it.
Unless this scandal is too much of it.
Yeah.
Or the scandal, she can't beat back the scandal, and this is it for her.
That's true.
Because that will make her, to a lot of the anti-Trump world, they will blame her, because the whole case is gone at this point. A new prosecutor would have to come in, review those plea bargains, review the entire case, and so that is why it is such a hefty decision, Logan, for a judge. I mean, a lot has happened here already. It's kind of like the 14th Amendment with the Supreme Court. It's just moving slower. Is it going to be a per curiam opinion where they don't sign it, but they all want to write an opinion right now because people are voting already for Super Tuesday? I mean, literally, we will know who the Republican candidate is for president within 2 weeks.
Yeah, likely. I mean,
no decision from the Supreme Court on what affects Colorado and Maine and probably 14 other states.